All for one and one for all. That's right. Today we are doing a deck profile on the three Musketeers. I'm Lorcana Thanos, the Mad Titan of the Luminary. Let's get started. Alright, so here's our list. All for one and one for all. It's a 60 card Amber Steel thematic Musketeer deck that is just meant for locals, casual, kitchen table. Obviously, it features the Musketeers and utilizes the body keyword. That costs $53.37. You'll notice we have a OK curve and 39 inkables, which means we have 21 non-inkables. So as opposed to my Steel Ruby Mulan thematic deck, Battle for the Wall, which you can check in the card up here, whatever side it's on. But finish this video first. I believe that deck had 50 inkables and 10 non-inkables as opposed to this one. So before we dive into the list, the thing about this deck is in testing I found that the non-inkables were a problem. It's because you're playing steel. And also the archetype, while thematically cool, it's just not that good. And I really was excited to play this deck, but I think this deck needs more. Um, so let's go ahead and dive in. We have 40 characters. First up, we have for our one drop, we have Daisy Duck, Lovely Lady. So she's just our thematic 1/3 with the pip. And then on 2, we have Minnie, and she's 2 cost inkable, 2/3 with a pip. Next, we have Mickey Mouse Standard Bearer, so inkable, 2 cost, 1/3 with a pip. But the reason why he's in here, 2 reasons, is the first is when you play him, you give a chosen character Challenger +2. Getting stuff off the board is something that this deck struggles with, and so I thought Standard Bearer would be a good addition. On top of that, he's also in here for a additional shift target for the Musketeer Captain Mickey, which we will get to momentarily. Next, 4 copies of Donald Duck Musketeer Soldier. So he's a 3 cost sinkable 2/3 with a lore pit that has bodyguard, and when you play him, you give chosen character +1 lore pit for this turn. This card I'm actually looking at playing outside of this deck in my Amber decks, just 2 to 3 copies, just as a way to sneak games out. He's very sneaky. Next up, 3 copies of Daisy Duck Musketeer Spy. So she's inkable 4 cost 2/3 with the lore pit, and when you play her, each opponent chooses and discards a card. So you would think that being able to discard is good, and really it's just okay because your opponent gets to choose what they discard. If you got to choose or even chose at random, I would like this effect better. But anytime your opponent gets to choose discarding, it's not as effective as you getting to choose, obviously. Next, 4 copies of Goofy Musketeer Swordsman. He's a 4 cost non-inkable 3/4 with 2 lore pips. Goofy is essentially like the linchpin of the deck. It sounds crazy to say because he's just a rare, but this deck almost pretty much revolves around Goofy. So what Goofy does is when you play a character with bodyguard, you ready him, and then he can't quest for the rest of the turn. So ideally, you would like to quest with Goof, gain your 2 lore, play a character with bodyguard, ready the Goof, and then Goofy can either obviously challenge or just keep him ready. So it makes it harder for your opponent to deal with him. One thing I forgot to mention about Daisy is she's also in here because she's thematically relevant as a Musketeer. So next up, we have 4 copies of Donald Duck Musketeer. He's an inkable 4 cost. That's 2/5 with the lore pip and bodyguard. And Donald is really good. So during your turn, he grants your Musketeers evasive, which is in this metagame, especially with Diablo. You guys know what the problem cards are. In the Ursa Return metagame, you need ways to deal with evasive. And so Donald provides that for us. Next, we have 4 copies of Goofy Musketeer. I really love this card. So he's 5 cost inkable, 3/6 with a lore pip, bodyguard naturally, and his ability and 2 for T. When you play this character, you may remove up to 2 damage from each Musketeer characters. Goofy is essentially your Rapunzel without the draw. This guy, if he drew, he would be a legendary, and he would be very, very solid for this deck. I do think he's a little expensive. I wish he was a 4 cost, but on 5, because you are playing higher cost characters, um, it is what it is. Next up, we have 3 copies of Minnie Mouse, the Musketeer Champion. So Minnie is a non-inkable 5 cost. It's a 1/5 with 2 lore pips and has bodyguard. Um, Obviously, that's very solid. And then her ability, dramatic entrance. When you play her, she banishes a chosen opposing character with 5 strength or more. So she's a built-in world's greatest criminal mind. And as a natural steel song player, that card I keep trying it every meta, and it's okay. It comes up every now and then, but it's just not really relevant. And that's the thing I found with playing many with this deck, is that it just wasn't a relevant effect. You playing her mostly for obviously the 2 pips and as another way to have a bodyguard character in play, and that's the main reason why you're gonna play her. And then next up we have our Mickey's, 4 copies of Mickey Musketeer. So he's 6 cost inkable, 2/7 with 2 lore pips, bodyguard naturally. His ability all for one. When he's in play, your other Musketeer characters gain +1 strength. So that's obviously very good to deal with the ice block and legendary Shishu strategy that's going around. And then rounding out the characters, 4 copies of Mickey Musketeer Captain, non-inkable 7, 3/6 with 2 lore pips, shift for 5, bodyguard to support. And his ability, when you play him using shift, you draw for each character you have in play with bodyguard, which will include himself. Ideally, if you hit curve and you play this properly, and you time it right, you should be drawing anywhere from 3 to 6 cards off this effect. And also, with Mickey being a legendary, I also did a video of ranking every legendary in Ursula's Return, which you can click the card up here to see that. Moving on to our actions, we only have 2, and it's 2 copies of Smash. You just need a way to deal some additional damage in this deck, and so we are running Smash, 12 songs. All pretty standard steel package stuff. 4, Let the Storm Rage On. 4, Strength of a Raging Fire. 4, and then along came Zeus. And 2, Grab Your Sword. Then rounding out items, 4, Fortisphere. This card is fantastic. It's inkable if you need to create ink. It's a cantrip. And then I love the ability for this deck. You pay an ink, you banish it, and then you give chosen character of yours bodyguard until the start of your next turn, which then is a great way to help you get an additional draw when you shift into the Mickey Captain. And rounding out the list, 2 copies of Musketeer Tabard. It's a non-inkable 4 that whenever one of your characters with bodyguard is banished, you may draw a card. So it's a mini draw engine for this deck. The thing I don't like about the card, besides it being non-inkable, is it costs too much. Ideally, it would be better if it was a 2 or 3 cost. It's not, but I think the item, it costs way too much. All right, so there you have it. That is our deck profile for the 3 Musketeers, all for one and one for all. Be sure to let me know down below what you thought of the list. It's a fun thematic list, but I'm always open to see what you guys have. Maybe have some new ideas that I didn't. So always be sure to give me one of these. They're always super helpful. Engagement always helps this video get shown. As always, be sure to smash that subscribe button and click the bell so you get notified when I upload new videos every Tuesday and Friday. And remember, the hardest choices require the strongest wills. Bye.